family, friends, and colleagues of MAITHRI Panagoda. Welcome to this book launch of MAITHRI's second anthology of poems, Purple Patch. My name is Pauline Gudavardhana, as Eslin said, and it is my honor and pleasure to have been invited by MAITHRI to take you through the program for this evening. Again, before we start the proceedings, may I ask you please to take a moment to turn your mobiles to silent mode? Just a quick check. Thank you for enabling a smooth run-through. And again, as my first duty too, I need to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we stand, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And we pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. I think we are going to have the honor of the presence of Her Excellency, Mrs. Yasoja Gunasekara, Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to Australia, and she is anticipated. I would like to begin with a brief introduction of MAITHRI's background, some of which you would know already, of course. Born in the small island of Sri Lanka, MAITHRI's cultural heritage is grounded in this ancient land called the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. He traveled to England to pursue his legal studies and then made his home here in Australia, where he has lived for most of his life. MAITHRI began writing when he was just a teenager, and his creative work in Sinhala consists of poems, lyrics for many popular songs performed by well-known artists in Sri Lanka, and other writings. His first anthology of English poetry was Pages of Life, published in 2022. A lawyer by profession, MAITHRI is a senior legal counsel at the prestigious law firm of Carroll and O'Day in Sydney, and he's also an adjunct professor at the University of Notre Dame in Sydney. MAITHRI's focus on the ethics of social justice and the humanitarian rights for all has involved him in many landmark cases relating to Indigenous Australians and given him high-profile status and distinction in New South Wales as well as in the wider Australia. His work as a lawyer has been recognised in the 2016 Queen's Birthday Honours with the award of the Order of Australia, AM, for services to the Sri Lankan community and for dispute resolution in the Indigenous community. In recognition of his high standing and valued contribution to the legal world in this his adopted country, in 2022, Carroll and O'Day hosted the launch of the book, Pursuing a Vision of Justice, Essays in Honour of MAITHRI Panagoda, at a felicitation held at the Parliament of New South Wales, attended by many legal luminaries, and at which the chief guest was the Governor of New South Wales, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC, KC. So MAITHRI has brought singular honour to our motherland, and he is much to be admired for all he has done. MAITHRI is a man of many parts. A man for all seasons is an apt description, but core to him is unassuming humility and steadfast integrity, with a gentle and compassionate care and help for all who come across his life's path. The launch of MAITHRI's book will be done by Les Wicks, an Australian poet, publisher, and editor. Les has 15 books of poetry to his name, and the last one is titled Time Taken, New and Selected, published in 2022. To introduce Les, he is a Sydney-sider who studied Asian and Australian history at Macquarie University. He has lived and worked in a variety of jobs in Sydney and in London. Welcome, High Commissioner. We are very pleased you could make the time for us. Thank you. In the late 1970s, in furtherance of his strong interest in poetry, Les established Muse Press with Bill Farrow, which focuses on poetry outreach projects. He helped set up the Poets Union of Australia in New South Wales, and from the 1980s, in a change of direction, he worked as a union industrial advocate after obtaining qualifications in industrial law from the University of Sydney. Les has been a guest at most of Australia's literary festivals and toured widely. Over 45 years, he has performed in Australia and internationally. He has been published and has given broadcasts in over 400 different channels, magazines, anthologies, and newspapers across 35 countries, and been featured in 15 languages. Les conducts poetry workshops around Australia to develop the skills of budding poets, and has edited varied material over the decades, the latest being Guide to Sydney Crime in 2022. Muse Press, which he runs, fosters unusual, creative, and innovative projects, such as poetry on buses and poetry published on the surface of a river. May I now hand you over to the well-known Les Wicks.
Thanks for that. I think you know more about me than I know myself. There wasn't a moment's hesitation before accepting Maithri's request that I launch his latest book. We, all of us of a generation, have lived lives with major obstacles, quiet successes, and the weight of ageing. You'll find much within Purple Patch that illuminates, almost verifies, the decades of us on this earth. Many, perhaps most of you, will be aware of his backstory. Growing up in and continued association with Sri Lanka, arrival in Australia to find himself in a job few have the resilience to take on, let alone persist for decades. Following this was his work with the major legal firm, taking on two of the most fraught issues in Australian society. Purple Patch is one part memoir, one part struggle to understand, even mollify, the planet that has been his home for so many decades. I know many of you here are not poets or regular readers of poetry. It's a tiny, embattled art form. But poetry at its best can contain the uncontainable. Love, grief, rage can all be distilled onto paper, whereupon a stranger's eye can find itself locked, enriched and enhanced as it travels the lines that make a little more sense of this flawed, fragile and extraordinary species that we are. Purple Patch does all this and more. The style or voice of the book is largely in free verse format with strong lyrical threads throughout. Good lyrical writing features genuine depths while retaining a flowing accessibility. The term lyrical actually comes from the word lyre, music. This book has a vast empathy as it explores the troubles of others alongside his own challenges. Social justice has always been a core impetus in his life, and this comes out so beautifully throughout this book. Though, interestingly, one never sees the temperature raised to anger. In his poem, Kill the Lawyer, he merrily paints the apparent incompatible halves of himself, law versus poetry. both at war with each other. But I don't really agree. So much of this book is framed in a focus and is almost presenting a submission, Panagoda versus the universe, whereby the arguments and facts are meticulously collated, refined, then presented to you, the jury. The injustice is never overlooked. Rather, it is presented in such a way that we can see beyond the outrage to a greater truth. This book comes in 3 sections. Introspections brings us moments from the early part of his life in Sri Lanka, then carries us on through personal observations of body, land, mortality. First Australians takes us through his time as a new entrant in Australia, finding work at the Aboriginal Legal Centre in Dubbo. He lasted 2 decades at what must have been a vastly stressful, though thoroughly necessary position. As I noted previously, there's plenty to be engaged at in the stories in these poems, but Maithri has chosen compassion as the tiller for this very difficult navigation. I'll quote some lines. Brown among black, carrying laws that so often cut deeper than justice. He makes the point that his work there was not heroic. Quote again, he is not known for verdicts or titles, but for his staying. His superpower was endurance, and that is so often the key to genuine social change. Finally, Miscellaneous Ruminations is unapologetically just what it says. Sure, it travels far and wide, from a King's Cross sex worker to a soldier's widow, from the joys of smoko to book burning. The language throughout is rewarding. One can either browse or really take your time and find yourself in hidden splendours. Try reading The Pyramid Girl, which encapsulates a spectrum of issues with global tourism within a simple moment of exchange. The Mango Tree is a story, almost a parable, that's classic lyrical poetry at its purest. Takes all of us by the hand, leads us seemingly effortlessly along a path to a wonderful conclusion. There is beautiful language in the unfolding return and Last Testament. That Last Testament will see you all break out in smiles. Imagery is carefully placed and often extraordinary, and I'll quote a few. He drank to drown a sky, and sang our hymns louder than the earth's breath. Revel in shadows stretch where mercy dares not tread. Plus, the palaces were deaf, sealed in silks of silence. I feel honoured to have this honest, open book destined for my bookshelf. Even when it's there, the insights will remain with me as my own tiller struggles with difficult tides. I declare this book duly open. Thanks.
Thank you, Les, for that such a perceptive and beautiful acknowledgement of Maitri's work. Very well deserved, of course. The anthology is, in many senses, as Les also noted, an autobiography in poetry, a memoir of Maitri's life and times, from a carefree childhood and youth growing up in Sri Lanka, in the rural area as well, to then, in the fullness of time, as a man growing a family and career in this adopted home of Australia. In a life well spent, Maitri's 3 children, Gajan, Ravani and Matisha, have been his inspiration, his support, his joy and his fulfillment, as he says in the dedication of this book to them. And appropriately, we come now to the enthusiastic participation of Maitri's 5 delightful grandchildren, they who will carry the memories forward in time. Ravi, Santi, Amali, Rohan and Malika, in chronological ages, will do readings of selected poems from the anthology. May I invite Rohan now to start, and he will read to us Footsteps Through Time, a reflection on the beginning of it all, the uncomplicated world of a happy childhood.
Footsteps through time. His little feet soak in the pulse of the earth that shaped me. He strokes sleeping grass, watching it curl into slumber. By the old spring, his hands sink into cool mud, shaping small worlds that slip between his fingers. He chases birdsong, his laughter rising, but they are always just beyond reach. Wild fruits, plucked straight from the vine, burst on his tongue. As I watch, is it him I see? Or is it the boy I once was, wandering an uncomplicated world?
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rohan. And Ravi is next and will give us the mango tree, the one that Les mentioned, on the age-old wisdom of protecting the land and its continuity through time, if we are to benefit from its bounty.
I wish it gone, uprooted, severed, slain, to make space for a car. A wise villager, eyes old as the earth, whispered against the wind. Do not do that. Its roots run deep. If they wither, the ground will mourn, the walls will crack, your home will come undone. This tree, elder of the land, stood sentinel through generations, its shadow cooling my grandfather's dreams. And though its bark bears the years, its branches still cradle the sun, its fruits still burst with the sweetness of memory, of time, of life. Then I knew I am but a caretaker, a keeper of roots, a passerby in its long embrace.
Thank you, Ravi. Amali is next, and she is reading Brown Among Black, again as Les mentioned, very strong poem. It is the powerful story of a life dedicated to the quest for justice and equity for all. A man who saw and stayed, who made it his life's work.
He came with a briefcase full of borrowed lore, a wife, a baby, and an accent still unpacked. The train from Sydney cut through blue-grey gumlands into red pulse of Wiradjuri country. Dubbo, flanked by the slow silver spine of the majestic quarry. He stepped off the platform like an astronaut on an unexplored planet, breath held, feet unsure, onto soil older than myth. 50,000 years stared back at him through carved trees, ancient eyes, and the stillness of heat. The welcome was not a wave, but a watching. Not rejection, but the quiet weight of waiting. Would they trust him, this alien, brown among black, carrying laws that had so often cut deeper than justice? He listened, he stayed. He learnt the rhythm of a different dialect, woven with truths too heavy for textbooks. The red earths did not embrace him at first, but did not push him away. Over time, his name became part of stories told by campfires, not for glory, but for standing still when others turned. Now, 45 years and 1,000 cases later, he is not known for verdicts or titles, but for his staying, for his persistence when rebuffed by the oppressor, for venturing into uncharted territory in his quest for justice. His service, a quiet thread in the vast, enduring fabric of people still rising.
And thank you, Amani. That was wonderful. Santi is next. She's going to read My Fortunate Hand, taking us through the different stages of life's pathway, from childhood through to the drawing down of time.
As a toddler, I remember my mother's hand, soft as silk, warm as sun, guiding me gently down a dusty village path to the school with open doors. I left my birth country, a boy with empty pockets but fists full of law books and a heart stitched with hope. In one hand, a pen, in the other, blank pages, yearning for a future. 2 years later, I found a hand meant for mine, steady, tender, true. We tied our fingers with gold thread vows beneath the canopy of tradition and trust. Then came a boy, bright-eyed, barefoot joy. I walked him to kindergarten, his tiny fingers curled like vines around my own. Blessed with 2 more children, challenges came and passed. The pen in my hands never rested, writing, signing, building bridges from days to dreams, one stroke at a time. And now my feet falter where once they flew. But I wait with open palms for my grandchildren's hands, firm and fearless, to lead me homeward, my fortunate hands.
Thank you, Sandy. And little Malika, the youngest of the grandchildren, will be giving us a walk with Nangi. Nangi is little sister, the springtime of a child, and the love that keeps winter at bay.
Walk with Nangi. Your small feet dance on the summit path, but mine tread heavy, slow. Still, step by step, I am coming with you. You take my right hand, those fingers curling around weathered skin, not knowing of the storm in my shoulder, the ache that lingers like an old song. Don't you want to walk with me, Sia? My mind soars forward, but my body, unwilling, tries to stay behind. My breath is a whisper of autumn leaves, my legs brittle branches swaying in the wind. Unsteady feet wave are ready soon to surrender, but I plant them firm. Not just yet. Don't take pity on me, child, I'll be fine soon. When spring returns to my limbs, when the weight of time lifts, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, wait for me.
Thank you, Malika. That was so well done. Thank you. And time now for us to have the pleasure of hearing from the man of the moment. Maithri will read to us his poem, Purple Touch, and then go on to do the vote of thanks. Thank you, Maithri.
I'm going to read the title of the book, Purple Patch. The weight of years, once heavy as stone, lies light now, settling like autumn's hush. The summit nears, the climb is done, a breath at last, unburdened, slow. The sky unfurls in endless blue. Valleys stretch like golden threads. The wind hums low, a whispered tune. Soft hands of time caress my head. Spring flowers lean in painted bloom, a symphony of wing and breeze. While light spills warm on weathered hands, a lullaby sung by rusting trees. Laughter rings, small feet on wood, echoes of love in fleeting steps. Is this the scent of triumph's end, or just the fragrance of a life well spent? Good evening, and thank you for being here. I want to particularly thank Her Excellency, the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka, for her gracious presence. I join Pauline in acknowledging the traditional custodians of this local area, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay respect to elders past and present. I'm pleasantly surprised to see three wonderful people here. Leno Parker, a respected elder of the Aboriginal community. I think the correct way to address her is Auntie Leno, although you are younger than me. And then Marianne Hausia, another leader of the Barkindji people in the northwest of New South Wales. I first met Marianne about 40 years ago when we were welcomed into the Indigenous community. Also the young lady at the back, Angela Bates, former head of the First Nations Department of Screen Australia. Angela's late father was a legend in the struggle for land rights. He led the blockade of the Mutawinji National Park in 1983. Happy memories, people like Eric Wilson, who fought for Aboriginal rights all his life from Broken Hill. Very happy and very honored that you are here. Back to poetry. This book began in a small Sri Lankan village where the main library was the memory of our elders. It was a place shaped by coconut trees, rice fields, monsoon winds, sacred stillness of village temples, streams where we bathed, and quiet dignity of ordinary people. Many of the poems in this book grew from that soil. I was a barefoot village boy more interested in playing cricket, climbing trees, chasing fireflies, and avoiding homework than in becoming a poet or a lawyer for that matter. My first poem in Sinhalese got published in a major Sunday newspaper when I was about 14 years of age. That poem painted an unsuccessful teenage love story. I cannot say any more because my wife is in the audience. I published my first Sinhalese poetry anthology at the age of 24. I left Sri Lanka in 1975, full of ambition, with absolutely no idea about the unforgiving English weather. I was untrained in complex culinary skills such as making a cup of tea or boiling an egg. Over the years, I learned many things. How to read the law, how to survive winters without a jumper, and the pride in earning money by doing menial jobs. When Ramya asked me to marry her, sorry, it's the other way around. I only had to say, will you? She said, yes, yes, yes. So, we migrated to Australia in 1981. I had stopped writing since I left Sri Lanka, but something happened in about 1989. One day, my daughter Ruwani, I have never told this story. She came home from school, she was about 7, and whispered something in my ear. This happened when we were living in Dubbo. She said there was a girl in a class who seemed to have only one uniform and that her shoes were falling apart at the seams. Ruwani was quite upset about it. That night, I wrote a poem which basically said, place a pen in my frozen hand and I will record your grief in my poems. Whether the readers would like it or not, that's what I have done, writing about injustices and marginalized people in the community. Through my legal work, especially with Indigenous Australians, I discovered something very familiar to me in Sri Lanka. A deep connection to land, history, and community. Aboriginal people's resilience reminded me of the people I grew up with. Farmers, coconut pluckers, laborers, village healers, temple monks, who carried history not in books, but in their lives. I learned that dispossession is not just loss of property. It is the tearing of stories from the earth. Land is not just soil, it's memory. So these poems live somewhere between those two worlds, between a Sri Lankan village and an Australian courtroom, between a half-naked boy running around barefoot and a man in a suit arguing about justice with a dogged belief in fairness, between nostalgia and responsibility. This is not a book about being valiant or heroic. It's a book about being confused, stubborn, sometimes foolish, but always trying to do a little better than yesterday, which is really the Sri Lankan way. It is about what happens when cultures meet, when histories collide, and when individuals try to live with dignity inside systems that are not always kind. I trained in the rigor of statutes and judgments, in the language of rights and responsibilities. Law taught me precision, poetry taught me listening. Over time, those two worlds, law and poetry, began to speak to each other. Poetry allowed me to say things the law cannot say. It allowed me to grieve, to remember, to forgive, and sometimes simply to sit in silence. I thank Pauline Gunawardena, a sincere friend. After reading my first book, Pages of Life, she encouraged, almost pestered me to keep writing. I didn't even have to ask her to MC tonight. From her hospital bed, recovering from major surgery, she asked how she could assist with the launch. Les Wicks, the great Australian poet, unassuming as he is, guided me, mentored me when I was nervously getting ready to publish my first anthology. After attending one of his poetry workshops in Canberra, we became friends. Thank you very much, Les, for launching the book tonight and your very kind words. If any of you want to learn how to write poetry, this is the man. Follow his classes. I thank my family for tolerating someone who, in effect, led a double life, unsure about his role in the world, poetry or law. I want to particularly thank my precious grandchildren for reading their choice of poems. I think they did a wonderful job. If you agree, please. I thank my friends who pretend to understand my poems. And I thank the community who trusted me with their stories and taught me more than any law book ever could. Most of all, I thank you for being here tonight. If you find something of your own story in these poems, a memory, a laugh, or even a small tear, then my attempts have been worthwhile. Thank you very much. Before I leave the stage, there's a small sign of gratitude to Pauline. Can that be presented, please? Thank you. And and a token of appreciation to Les Wicks for his wonderful work. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. I'll get down. Thank you, down. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, that was unexpected, a gift to me, because it has been my absolute total pleasure, Maitri, to see this work that you have done. It is, without any doubt, something that all of you should buy and read. It encapsulates Maitri's philosophy on life, his personality, his compassionate, wise, and courageous nature. So, with that, I'll just get on with the rest of the program. So, I hope you have enjoyed the launch of Purple Patch as much as I have been pleased to bring it to you. This is a sensitively written and well-crafted book of poems, presenting varied aspects of Maitri, in nostalgic mood, reminiscing on the past, on childhood, youth, parents, and relationships, giving of his ruminations on life, as well as his reflections on his personal interactions with the First Nations people of this land, for whom he has strived to do so much. The memories, the feelings, the touch, the sounds, they are as real as the Maithri here and now. The poet, subsumed within the lawyer, and now travelling back in time to give us the complete Maithri through the medium of poetry. The book is available for purchase at the table set up by Gleebooks over there, and it is priced at $20. Maithri will be happy to autograph his book if you would like that. He will be seated at this table here, and if you can please go over there after you've got your copy. And so now is refreshments time, but before that, just one more thing. Thank you very much, everyone, for your presence here this evening to make the launch of Purple Patch a success. Congratulations to Maithri on his creative spirit, and I know we all wish him many more fruitful years of legal and poetic fulfillment. And now, if you have any questions, it is the time to ask Maithri or Les. Over to them. Thank you.
How did you find the time in the day to do all this work that you do?
Good point.
In the law, in the poetry.
I think I'll go to
Do you have a mic there? Oh, you gave it to me.
Thanks for that curly question. See, the work we do, particularly in my field, is very taxing. We deal with traumatic issues. For the last few years, I've been acting for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Before that, I was acting for Aboriginal people who were disadvantaged over 237 years. My right-hand person in doing those things, Hayley Aldridge, is here. So to get away from that very emotional, taxing environment, my way out, people find different ways of dealing with it. Some people smoke heavily, become alcoholics. I couldn't afford those things, so I just write, scribble things even when I'm driving.
Okay.
I have a...
Last time I accepted a lift from you.
No, police people are here. So I have a dictaphone. So that's what I do. And these things are just notes initially, but later on develop into something else. So I think that's the explanation I have to give. And I don't have many vices, just limited ones, but raising a family is also takes time, and these are the things I've been doing for the last 50 years, I think.
Maithri, I would like to ask a question. First of all, congratulations on this big achievement.
Thank you.
You make all of us very proud. I would like to ask a question which will help many budding poets in the audience.
That should be directed to this.
Were there any times that while writing this book and the books that you have been writing in the past, any time that you thought, I can't do this, this is too difficult, I give up? And how did you overcome that?
No,
This is the problem I'm having.
no, that never happened because it was a very pleasurable activity. The takes time. I go through 10 drafts sometimes, from a little note to develop it into a poem and be satisfied with it. It takes time, but it's not torture. I think one of my problems, it's been pointed out even by Ruani, that most of my poems are dark in the sense, not joyful. I do write some funny ones, but mostly, see, different poets write different, they have different styles. I don't put it forward as a theory, but I think a creator, an artist, a short story writer, poet should focus a light onto the dark corners in the world, show the injustices which can't surface in the normal way. So I think that's what I have been doing, and in a funny way I get a lot of satisfaction by doing that. When we were living in Dabo, I saw a lot of hardships people were going through, not too different from Sri Lanka. So you write about it, you think about it. You can't solve the problem, but highlight it. I think that's what I've been doing, and I was happy to be able to do that.
Hi, Kathy. We're very proud of you. Congratulations.
This is my daughter-in-law, Claire.
My question is about the language in which you're writing. So you write in Sinhalese, you write in English, and how or has that changed your style?
Took me a long time to develop the confidence to write a poem in English. We learned English as a second language, did our legal studies in English, the degrees and all that, and of course worked in the English language. But writing poetry is very different from writing a legal thesis or affidavit or something like that. It takes a bit of time and develop your confidence. That's where teachers like Les Wicks play a role. I think I have read a lot of poetry, trying to develop my own style. You take part in poetry readings. There are a couple of poetry groups in Sydney that I go to. So it's a learning process. I'm still learning. There's a lot to learn. It'll take another lifetime to get to the level that Les is writing, because most of his writings I can't understand. So that's the way it goes. I'm still crawling in the poetry world.
May I ask a question? Why the purple patch?
I was reading a book a couple of, maybe 3-4 years ago, and these two words just stood out. I didn't even know the meaning of purple patch. And also, I think during a cricket commentary, someone said, that's his purple patch. I liked the two words very much. I said, one day if I'm going to publish a book, the title is going to be Purple Patch. And then I started researching the term. That's how it came about. And also I think at 75 plus years of age, I think it's about time that I reach my purple patch. Yeah, that's all.
I have another question. Why poetry and not prose? What made you pick that medium?
Again, I think it's not really a choice, it's what you do. I mean, I can't write a novel, I don't have the patience. I can't write, even short stories I've written, but I find poetry easier, quicker. I mean, because of the time constraints as well, I mean, we do a lot of other things, so writing a poem is a lot easier that way. And the thing is, you have to think a lot to concise it, to bring it into 8 or 12 lines, a whole story. Some of the poems that the kids read, I think one in particular is my whole life story. So yeah, that's the way it works, I think. Thank you.
Very well for you.
Any questions for Les?
I put a question actually. During my childhood, I was fascinated by some of your Sinhalese songs actually, and that I came to know.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit deaf.
And it was a time that we went to school with the songs that some of the songs that you have lyric, and we really loved that. Even last night when I talked to someone overseas, and he said that those were written, you met the person who wrote those or lyric those poems, sorry, those songs? I said yes. And he has his book launch this tomorrow afternoon, so I'm going to attend to that. And my question is this actually, and with my best wishes to your work, and also work to come, always as I always said to you. Now, I've been myself a teacher too, and literature as well. I just want to ask this question because, like, this is a personal question, but how does thing or the subject originate in your mind? Is it in your own language, which is Sinhalese when I share, or English language? And how do they originate in your mind really to make it a work of art?
I think I started thinking in English about 25 years ago. Sinhalese up to about age 50, and then even now sometimes I think in English and then write. So it's in a way it's a funny thing, the way it works within you. On your comments about the songs, these were written mostly when I was about 21. I think I've written 98 songs which were sung by Sri Lankan singers, and they were mostly patriotic songs and love songs, and some about, again, people's sadness in life. So that was the thinking in Sinhalese. And then today, after living 3/4 of my life overseas, particularly in Australia, and liaising with the Aboriginal community, and none of the Aboriginal people speak Sinhalese, so I had to develop that skill, if you like. So you do live between two worlds, two languages, two cultures. It's a real great opportunity. Not many people have it. We are very lucky that way, I think. My good fortune is my Sinhalese never suffered because of my English writing. I can still put together something sort of reasonable quality in Sinhalese. So that is something that I value very much. I never lost my Sinhalese language skills. I mean, I can't make a speech in Sinhalese without getting ready for it beforehand, but I can write it first and then deliver it. Some people play two sports, so it's a bit like that, I think. Yeah, anyway, that's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Close it, yeah.
No one else with a question for Les or Maithri? If not,
I'd like to ask one.
there you are.
You spoke about a few vices that you've got. I'd like to know at least one of them.
I thought you were my friend.
Mine is to really stress, and that is to play the poker machine. It's quite expensive. But I really want to know, MAITHRI PANAGODA, how long have I known you? And you got through all that time with us black fellas not knowing about you being a poet. We opened up and told you everything. And I think it's a bit of a payback. I think it's just bloody amazing.
When we came to Australia, we were in Sydney for about 6 months. I couldn't get a job here in the legal field, despite my qualifications in Sri Lanka and England. No law firm in Sydney would employ me. So the only job offer I got was in Dubbo for the Aboriginal Legal Service. And we went to Dubbo thinking in 6 months' time we'll come back to Dubbo. But we met these wonderful people like Leno and Marianne and a host of others who welcomed us. This brown man, the brown family, into the black family. And I used to tell some Aboriginal people that I'm not black as black as you are. We are brown, so we are a step ahead. So 6 months turned into 10 years. We had a wonderful time. We made lifelong friendships. Our kids made friends there. We laughed with them. We drank with them. We cried with them. And it was a wonderful, I mean, the trip I reluctantly took to Dubbo is today defining my life, my career, with work with the Aboriginal people, and that's a real advantage. And I mentioned Eric Wilson before. Eric devoted his whole life. I mean, I went into private practice, but Eric kept working for the Indigenous community and represented must be thousands of people who got into trouble. And there's a poem called Death in Vulcania. Vulcania is where Marianne and the mob comes from. It's about Aboriginal death in custody. Barbara Flick, who is another Aboriginal elder, she had read the poem. She rang me and said she couldn't stop crying reading it because it's very sad, again a dark area of Australian life. Marianne, so that's what I've been doing. I didn't announce myself as a poet. I still don't consider myself as a poet. I mean, I try to write poetry. That's all I do.
It's just like, how many nights have we had around a fire bucket, a fire campfire, and talked and yarned about everything and anything political stuff.
Sang songs together.
You're a dark horse, Panagoda.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Okay, we have got to the end of the proceedings, except that you are now welcome to mingle and socialize and help yourselves to the food and drinks. Have a good time, and thank you very much.
And you get RSI from signing all the books.